Hi, I'm Bas, and in this video I'm going to take a closer look at the Aputure C120D Mark II. The 120D, or the LS-C120D Mark II, is a relatively old fixture in the sense that it was released, I think, more than a year ago. Nonetheless, it is a very interesting option for a lot of filmmakers because of the fact that it has a very small form factor, it has a lot of output, and you could actually power the light with a V-Lock battery. And you would only need the one, which is really useful in a lot of situations where you don't have access to power or have limited V-Lock batteries. Now, the 120D is a daylight fixture. The D stands for daylight, and that means that if you want to use it in tungsten environments, you might want to either take some orange gels with you, or you should look for an LED light that has multi-Kelvin capabilities. Now, for me, one of the reasons to buy into this light is the fact that it has a lot of output, a pretty good CRI, and you can use it in tons of applications without lugging big HMI lights on location. Now, I own a 300D Aputure light already. They just released the 300D Mark II, but there were a few things on that light that the 120D Mark II already kind of fixes for you. One of the biggest changes for me coming from that 300D is, for example, the yoke and just the build quality. It just feels that little bit better than it was on the 300D Mark I, a lot more sturdy. And the same goes for the power supply, the ballast. What you will see is that it's all in one unit, so you don't have a separate power supply from the control unit, which is great because it declutters a lot. You have less cables with you on location. And talking about the cables, this light actually has the color-coded system in the cables already, so it's really easy to attach the right cable in the right place. Output-wise, the 120D really delivers a punch. There's a lot of light coming out of this small fixture. The unit itself feels sturdy enough to take with you on location. And if you come from a 300D like me, you'll notice that the unit is quite a lot smaller, and that can be a big thing. If you just are a one-man band shooter and you have the one car that needs to be filled up with all the other gear that you want to take with you, then weight and size becomes something you have to consider. And with this light, it just makes that a little bit easier. Aputure ships the 120D Mark II in a nice traveling bag with all of the necessary items. The light has a Bowens mount, and therefore you get a Bowens reflector that you can put on the light. Aputure does also supply a few nice accessories for that same Bowens mount. So you could either use the Fresnel mount, for example, which is pretty useful if you really want to spot something. But you can also use something as like a light dome or third-party accessories that work with the Bowens mount. Also in the bag is a remote control to remote control your lights and actually dim it from a distance, which is pretty useful. You can use one remote control for multiple Aputure lights because they all work on the same network. So if you have, for example, 6 lights rigged up on top, and you have a few lights on the side, for example, you can have like 2 or 3 channels and dim them accordingly. This can be very useful and a very fast way of changing your lighting conditions or doing something creative with that. And then integrated into the actual control unit are a few effects as well. So you have like the thunderstorm effect and the TV effect, which can actually be pretty useful whenever you have to do drama scenes, for example. And then probably the biggest selling point is actually its price. So at 850 euros a list, I think it's a really good option. You can't basically not buy one for that money and for the quality that it actually delivers, especially considering the build quality of every single item in the Aputure range. I think that Aputure came a long way and their first products may not have been completely up to the standard that we were used to as professional filmmakers. But now with these lights, actually I don't see any issue at all in just using these on pretty big sets actually. They are very, very useful and very light. I can't recommend them enough. So that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to our channel and I hope to see you next time. Aputure ships the 120D light in